Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blame It on the Stars, where we give you an inside look on what's going on in the universe so you can blame your problems on the stars. It is Jade here.
And it's Kara.
And this week, you're going to experience the full moon in Leo. We'll be sharing everything you need to know about that. But in case you missed it, last week, Venus entered the sign of Pisces, meaning that things with creativity and relationships are flowing really easily. So if you feel that shift and maybe missed last week's episode, definitely listen to last week's episode before diving into this one.
And just to give you a heads up, next week we will tell you everything you need to know about Mercury in Aquarius and how it affects you.
And just a reminder, because our short ad break is coming up next, in case you want to skip the ads, this is your reminder that subscriptions are now a thing. You can subscribe for $2.99 a month for ad-free listening if you choose to do so. And with that being said, let's dive into the episode. The full moon in Leo happens on February 5th at 1:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 16 degrees. Per usual, the date and time are from the website astroseek.com. What you need to know. Full moons are times of releasing, and it is a time of highlighting certain imbalances that are going on. So since Leo is all about taking the spotlight and Aquarius is all about the collective or the group in this situation, what you need to know is you might be finding that you are letting go of the spotlight in order to let the collective have its moment, or vice versa. If you are finding that you are the person who is constantly letting the group have their moment and you forget to take the spotlight, you're finding the balance between you versus the group.
So how does this affect you, and what will you be releasing on this full moon? Because Leo does deal with the self, you might find that there's a lot of things coming up that highlight things that you are a little bit insecure about or uncertain about within yourself that you might need to let go of during this time so that you can be a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more confident moving forward. You also may find that you need to focus a little bit more on others or on the group or what's best for everyone during this time. Again, finding that balance between you and other people.
So why this matters? Well, for some people who find that they don't let themselves speak up enough, or similarly, if you're finding that you're not doing enough listening and letting others in the group speak up, this can be a really good opportunity to find that balance. Also, some other things that might matter. Since both Leo and Aquarius are really great at being very original and are pretty good at being themselves and expressing themselves very freely, if you find that sometimes maybe your pride is getting in the way, or you're having a hard time letting your true self be seen for whatever reason, this full moon can also be a good opportunity to allow yourself to express yourself very freely. Something you might not know, though, is that this might be a bit of a challenging full moon. So being yourself very freely and expressing yourself might feel very uncomfortable due to some of these aspects, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, certain signs will be affected more than others. The first being Leo. It depends what your Leo placement is, but with the moon right there on your Leo placements, this might be a bit of an emotional day for you. Whereas Aquarius placements, depending on, again, what placement it is, with the sun being in Aquarius at the moment, but the moon also being opposite, you might find that the imbalance is really strong and that the Aquarius energy in your own chart is being a little bit challenged.
And if you have Taurus or Scorpio placements, then this will be more of a challenging full moon for you. The full moon will be square those placements in your chart. When we say placements, we mean like your sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, not necessarily the outer planets. Anyways, back to Taurus and Scorpio. If you have those placements, this will be a little bit more challenging. Squares can bring about tension, and some of the aspects that we're about to talk about are really going to be impacting you as well. So it's going to be a very activating and maybe one of the more intense full moons for the fixed signs this year.
So what are these aspects? The positive is that there are positive aspects to Mars. So this might be a full moon where you're finding it's very easy to take action. However, I would be mindful about taking action if you're doing any releasing on this full moon, just because of the other two that we're about to mention. But if you find that it's really easy to be motivated or to get things done, or again, you want to take action, that drive to do so is there. It's because of the positive aspects to Mars. The sun is trine Mars and the moon is sextile Mars.
Mars is also what I like to describe as a separating energy. And with that in mind, we also have a square to Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is the planet of the unexpected. So when we're thinking about this full moon and some things that might be released, you can expect it to be very quick and sudden and, again, unexpected. There might be some things going on internally, or it could be things that are happening around you where things are just changing and things can become very different, like overnight.
Also, I did want to mention, because earlier I had said that this might be a time where you really feel like you want to be yourself. It might feel a little bit difficult to do so with the squares to Uranus, because on one end, you're feeling very independent. You're figuring out who the real you is. You're finding that healthy balance between you and the group. But also with the squares to Uranus, you might feel almost like a bit of an outsider. So just know that that feeling is just temporary. It'll pass. You also might be feeling like you're very out of your comfort zone during this time, or that maybe society is heading in a different direction than you want to at this moment. And that's because this full moon also does have squares to the nodes, which are pointing to the direction society is heading in at this time. So just know that this full moon is just a full moon. It'll come, it'll go, and challenges are temporary. So if you missed last week, then you maybe don't know, but we brought back an old segment, which is our astrology Q&A. So we'll be answering 4 of your questions this week. Those questions are what it means if you are a Leo moon, if you have Leo in your big 3, if you should be manifesting at this time, and what you should do to prepare for the full moon in Leo. Those are the questions we'll be answering this week. If you want to know the answers to those, then definitely stick around. Next week, too, we'll be talking about Mercury in Aquarius. So if you have questions about Mercury in Aquarius or any astrology questions, if you're listening to this on Spotify, there's an option down below where you can go ahead and type your questions and we'll answer them on next week's episode. If you're interested in getting the answers to those questions, definitely stick around and listen. Otherwise, we'll just see you all next week. But make sure you're following us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at BLME The Stars. Let's get into the questions. Question number 1, Kara. If I have my moon in Leo, what does this full moon mean for me?
If you have your moon in Leo, then the moon, as it transits into Leo in the sky, that marks the beginning of your lunar return. Everyone has lunar returns. It just means that the moon in the sky is in the same sign as it was in at the time that you were born. So again, for the Leo moons out there, around the time of this full moon will be your lunar return, and that marks the beginning of a new cycle of the moon in your chart and your emotional self. Also, just keep in mind, because this is a full moon, the sun is in Aquarius. So depending on the degree of your moon sign, typically I say it within 5 degrees. So if your moon is between 11 and 21 degrees Leo, then the sun will be opposite your moon as well, which again is just activating your chart in a very specific way. Speaking of Leo placements, this next question is, I have Leo in my big 3. What does this mean?
So this kind of depends on your placement. So Kara just explained what this full moon means if you are a Leo moon. So I'm going to go ahead and just skip that one. But if you are a Leo sun, again, depending on the degree, then this full moon, the moon might be conjunct your sun. And also, too, the sun might be opposite your sun. So if that's happening and the sun is opposite your sun, there can be some highlighting of imbalances within your identity. Also, if the moon is conjunct your sun, you might find that your emotions are flowing well, you're able to express yourself, etc. And if you are a Leo rising, then the moon is currently in your first house. You might find that you almost feel like you're wearing your heart on your sleeve at this time, and the sun will be in your seventh house, highlighting relationships. But there might also be a push-pull between what you want and what your relationship expectations are. But it all depends entirely on the degree, what placement it is, etc. Because if you have really late degree Leo placements or even really early Leo placements, then this full moon is not aspecting you. So our next question, Kara, is this full moon a good time for manifesting?
Per usual, if you would like to manifest, do it. However, as Jade stated earlier, full moons are more about releasing. Manifesting during full moons is typically not recommended, but I guess if you feel called, you can. But generally speaking, no, we do not manifest during a full moon. So Jade, if we're not manifesting during the full moon, what other things can we do to prepare?
Some things that you can do conveniently, since this full moon is happening in the middle of the day in Eastern Standard Time. If you're listening to this and you're in the US, it'll be daylight hours during this time. And since Leo is ruled by the sun, this could be a good day to spend some time in the sun, weather permitting. Some other things that you can do can be channeling the fire energy and light candles. Think about what you want to release. I know some people really like to write down what they want to release on a piece of paper and then burn it on a candle. That might be something you feel called to do. But other than that, full moons are always a good time to charge your crystals if that's something you're into. The reason for that, why you charge your crystals under a full moon, is because the moon is the brightest in the sky and you can get all the moon energy into your crystals. Some other things that you can also do can be journaling or finding some creative outlet for yourself if that's something you are interested in. Definitely take advantage of that. Venus is in Pisces, so the creative energy is just flowing really easily during this time, but could also be something you might want to do during the full moon in Leo. And it's also happening on a sun day, so strongly suggest getting out in the sun if the weather permits you to do so. If you're curious, though, to know about maybe how this full moon in Leo affects you on a more personal level, or there's other things that you might want to know that would be better suited for a reading rather than the Astro Q&A, this is your reminder that we do offer readings. Readings are hosted on an app called Intro, which allows for FaceTime style like calls. You just select if you want the reading with either me, Jade, or Kara. We have readings for as short as 15 minutes to as long as 1 hour. You decide what you want the reading to be about. There's a slot for you to write down your astrology questions, and we'll be able to answer them face to face on the call.
And if you've never booked a reading with us before, then you can use the code STARS, all caps, STARS, for $20 off your first reading.
And just a reminder, next week we'll be talking all about Mercury in Aquarius. So if you have any questions about that transit specifically that you'd like answered on the podcast, or if you have any other general astrology questions that you're hoping to get answered, then definitely drop them down below on Spotify and we'll answer them in next week's episode. But before you go, make sure you're following us on social media to stay in the loop. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at BLME The Stars. That is all for now, and we'll see you all next Monday. Bye.